Hello everyone, it's me Susmita Gimri. In the previous video we have already discussed about the parts of the heart. In this video today we are going to talk about the circulations of the heart. Let's start from this part here. As we have already discussed, so I will write here the superior vena cava as SV and the inferior vena cava as IV. Let's start from superior and the inferior vena cava and forget about the rest picture. The superior and the inferior vena cava, which are the largest vein of the body carrying the deoxygenated blood, they empty their content in the right atrium here, and I will write the right atrium as RA. And from the right atrium, during the atrial contraction, the blood will go towards the right ventricle due to the opening of this tricuspid valve. And I will write here RV as the right ventricle. And from the right ventricle, during the ventricular contraction, the blood from the right ventricle, it will go towards the pulmonary artery here to the right and the left pulmonary artery due to the opening of this pulmonary valve. And then as the pulmonary artery are divided into right and the left, so right side of the pulmonary artery carrying the deoxygenated blood towards the right lungs, and the left side of the pulmonary artery carrying the deoxygenated blood towards the left lung here. As you can see here, the pulmonary artery is divided into its different branches: medium-sized pulmonary artery, small pulmonary artery, arterioles, and then after the capillaries here. This part is the capillaries. Both this pink color part here and this red color part. As the capillaries are the smallest blood vessels, and they allow the exchange of the nutrition, gases, and the waste product in between the blood and the tissue cells. So the major gases exchange process occurs in between the capillaries and the alveoli. At first, let's enlarge this part here. This part here. And this is the alveoli, and these are the capillaries here. As we have enlarged this certain part here, I will color the alveoli. So the diffusion of the gases takes place in between the alveoli and the capillaries here. The deoxygenated blood, the carbon dioxide from the capillaries here, it will go towards the alveoli here, and which is excreted during the expiration process. During expiration process, and the oxygen that is present in the alveoli during the inspiration, it will move towards the capillaries and it is absorbed towards the capillaries. So in this gas exchange process, carbon dioxide is expired and the oxygen is absorbed. And after the completion of this gases exchange process in both the right and the left side of the lungs, this capillaries, it will go towards the venules here, and from the venules here it will go towards the vein, and the pulmonary vein here bringing the oxygenated blood and carrying the oxygenated blood away from the lungs towards the heart. And the right side of the pulmonary vein carry the oxygenated blood behind the heart, and all the four pulmonary vein empty their content here in the left atrium. And now the left atrium have the oxygenated blood. Okay, I will write here the left atrium as LA. Now the left atrium have the oxygenated blood, and during the atrial contraction, the blood from the left atrium, it will move towards the left ventricle here. Left ventricle due to the opening of this bicuspid valve. And from the left ventricle, during the ventricular contraction, the blood from the left ventricle, it will goes towards the aorta here due to the opening of this aortic valve. and from the aorta here it will go towards the different branches of the aorta. We will discuss later, but before going to the branches of the aorta, as I would like to tell here, as these two valves here, these two atrioventricular valve, these two valves are also known as the input valve because they input the blood towards the heart, and the semilunar valves are also known as the output valve because they carry the blood away from the heart. And another thing here is the atrial contractions occurs at the same times and the ventricular contractions occurs at the same time. So whenever there is atrial contraction, the blood from the right atrium, it will go towards the right ventricles, and the blood from the left atrium, it will go towards the left ventricles. And so whenever there is ventricular contraction, the blood from the right ventricle, it will go towards the pulmonary artery here and to the lungs, and the blood from the left ventricle, it will go towards the aorta and its different branches. Another thing here, circulations of the heart can be divided into the two parts here. One is the pulmonary circulations and another is the systemic circulation. The circulations of the heart from the right side of the heart up to the left side of the heart, it is known as the pulmonary circulation, and the circulation from the left side of the heart again back to the right side of the heart, then it is known as the systemic circulation. Another thing that I would like to highlight here before going to the different branches of the aorta, here the blood from the right ventricle will not go again back to the right atrium, or we can say the blood from the left ventricle will not regurgitate towards the left atrium. It is because here in the atrioventricular valves, special kinds of tissues are found which supports the valve. These are the tissues, these are the tendinous cords are present here, whose one end is attached with the valve here, and another end they are attached with the papillary muscles, and these are the papillary muscles here, and this tendinous cords are present in the atrioventricular valves, and the name of this part is chorda tendineae. So let's talk about the chorda tendineae here in the next picture. Whenever there is high amount of pressure in the right atrium in comparison with the right ventricle, then it leads to the opening of this right atrioventricular valve, so that the blood from the right atrium, it goes towards the right ventricles. But whenever there is higher amount of pressure in the right ventricle in comparison with the right atrium here, there is the higher chances of the regurgitations of the blood from the right ventricle to the right atrium. But this only happen in the case of the pathological condition. Whenever there is higher amount of pressure in the right ventricle in comparison with the right atrium, then this chorda tendineae here flap back to its position, leading to the closure of the valve, as like this. For example, here it is the right atrium and this the right ventricles, and whenever there is a high amount of pressure in the right ventricle in comparison to the right atrium, this chorda tendineae flap back to its position, leading to the closure of the valve. So that because of the closure of the valve here, the blood from the right ventricle will not regurgitate again to the right atrium. As the same things happen in the left atrioventricular valve here, so that the blood will not regurgitate from the left ventricle to the left atrium here. Now let's move to let's talk about the systemic circulation. Aorta here, it is divided into its different branches, and which is also known as the systemic arterial tree. And from here, the aorta here, at first it is divided into the large artery, and this part here, this part is also known as the large systemic arteries, and up to here this is the large artery. And from the large artery here, this artery is further divided into the medium sized artery up to here. And medium sized artery, it is also known as the muscular artery, because there are a lot of smooth muscles are found in the medium sized artery. And from the medium sized artery here, it is divided into the small artery here, And from this small artery here, the artery is further divided into the arterioles, and this part up to this part and this part and this part are the arterioles. And from the arterioles, it's further divided into the meta-arterioles. So this part, and this part here, this part are the meta-arterioles. And from the meta-arterioles, it is divided into the capillaries here. So up to here, this part, this part are the capillaries here. And let's suppose here is the tissues here. As the capillaries, they are the very small blood vessels which allow the exchange of the gases, nutrients and waste product between the blood and the tissue cells. So oxygen will supply to the tissues here through the capillaries, and the nutrition will be supplied here. Nutrition will supply from the capillaries to the tissues here, and from the tissues here the carbon dioxide will excreted, and other waste product, we write here the waste product, and other waste product will goes from the tissues towards the capillaries. And after they taking carbon dioxide and waste product from the tissues, now the blood in the capillaries are deoxygenated, and this capillaries here, now the deoxygenated blood in this capillaries, it will goes towards the venules here, venules. And from the venules here, this deoxygenated blood, it will go towards this small vein, as this is the small vein. And from this small vein, it will go towards the medium-sized vein here. This is the medium-sized vein. And from the medium-sized vein, the deoxygenated blood will again drain back to the superior and the inferior vena cava. It will drain to the superior and the inferior vena cava. So the circulations from the left side of the heart again back to the right side of the heart, where the deoxygenated blood is drained to the superior and the inferior vena cava, is known as the systemic circulation. So in these videos we talk about the circulations of the heart as the pulmonary circulations and the systemic circulation. Hope this videos is helpful for you, and if you like this videos, please like, subscribe and press the bell icon so that you will be updated for the further other videos. Thank you very much, and see you soon in the next video.